Welcome to Coffee, Culture, and the Capital with Sophia and Greg. Hello and welcome back, everyone. We have a lot on the docket today to talk about, but before we dive into it, just announcement / reminder, if you've already seen or got our emails, we have our gala coming up on September 28th. Is that up in Sacramento, or where is that at, Greg?
That's down by you in Orange County. So If you love Orange County and you can't make it up to our Northern California version of the gala we do every year near the March for Life, we have another gala down south.
Yeah, so September 28th in Orange County, just like Greg said, Kaylee McEnany is going to be our keynote speaker. You'll also hear from Jonathan Keller, the president of California Family Council. And California Family Council, this is our 21st year since we became an organization. So you'll also get to hear a little bit about the history of the organization, but also about the future. So make sure to get there. There's going to be also like live music and a photo booth, and it's going to be a great time just to interact with people also fighting in this battle and getting to know people around you in your area that are fighting for biblical values. So visit cfcgala.com and you can go get your tickets, learn more and all that. But tickets are selling, so go get your tickets, go get your tables now. But with that, Greg, what are you drinking for coffee this morning?
Nothing fancy. It's just Keurig. Keurig gave me, it's a dark blend of some sort with hazelnut flavoring. So that's what I got today.
There you go. There you go. I have my Euro Cafe coffee. If you are in Southern California, I swear this is the best chai in Southern California. Right? It's so good. But Greg, there's been so much going on because today is Friday, August 30th. And what does that mean at the Capitol?
This is pretty much the last day of the 2-year legislative session. Any bills that don't make it out and approved by the legislature today will be dead. And so if they make it through today, they'll go to the governor's desk, and the governor will make the final decision over the next 30 days. But so the legislature's been meeting every day. A lot of times you watch, and this is all live. You can watch it online. A lot of it's boring, but there's been some feisty debates and things that have gone viral. So we're going to show you a couple things that of note that people are talking about up here that people should know about and be interested in. And then I'm going to tell a little bit about my efforts to lobby against a particular bill and just what that looks like, and show you how you could do this too. It's not that hard.
Absolutely. And so as we're wrapping up this session, like Greg said, even though today is the last day of session, bills don't just become law because the Senate Assembly passed them. They get sent off to the governor's desk. So don't think you are done making phone calls just yet. We'll have 30 days of calling Newsom's office and urging yes votes or no votes. So we'll move on to that next week and give you guys information on that. But like Greg said, there has been some kind of boring times in session and a lot of also crazy things being said and good debate. And we saw just early this week, Senator Shannon Grove from the Central California area. She had a phenomenal floor speech defending women in prison. And so we can talk a little bit about what's happening in the prison situation, but let's just dive right into her speech.
Well, before we start, let me give you a preference.
Yes.
This bill is not actually a bill she's against. It's a bill, it's AB 2527. It's dealing with women who are pregnant in prison. And it more or less says you have to treat them with some care. You can't put them in solitary confinement during their pregnancy or 12 weeks after their pregnancy unless they're in imminent danger. There's also making sure that they have enough water and daily supply of meals. Just want to make sure that the unborn babies are being treated well that are growing in these women's wombs, right? So there's nothing. This seems like a good bill, but she took the opportunity to talk about pregnant women in prison to talk about something else that's happening in prison related to pregnancy. So now show the video.
All right.
It prohibits the use of solitary confinement for pregnant postpartum women, except when there's a safety concern. Obviously, we want to make sure that all women inmates are taken care of and served. And I appreciate this bill and what it's trying to accomplish, and I agree that it will help keep prisoners, women, female prisoners, safe, like Chowchilla. I do have one problem that I think we all need to look at and address. If we're going to protect women in these prisons, we need to make sure that all women are protected. In 2021, the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitations was required during their intake to ask their gender identity for inmates, and they allow them to change them fluidly, I guess. CDR is also requires to house inmates who are transgender regardless of...
Senator Grove, if you could stick to the merit of the bill, please.
Absolutely, ma'am, I am, protecting women and postpartum issues. So we have an issue in Chowchilla, and I'll just be brief. And I'd like to read a letter, if I could, from a prison inmate in Chowchilla. So this bill that we're looking at is protecting postpartum women. Women are coming up pregnant in Chowchilla, and they're coming up positive for AIDS. This bill deals with the pregnancy. I have a letter here from an individual.
Senator Grove, so long as the letter is related to the merits of the bill, incarcerated,
Yes.
pregnant.
It's from an incarcerated woman. Yes, it is from an incarcerated woman. So in brief, I'm sure I'll get cut off again for this particular bill. I had an incarcerated woman from Chowchilla Prison who's dealing with the pregnancy issue of a rape of an individual who has male anatomy in this prison. In this bathroom at Chowchilla, permission to use a prop, they hand out condoms. Why do you need condoms in a women's prison paid for by
I'm sorry, is
taxpayer
permission
dollars?
granted?
Senator Grove, stick to the merits of the bill, please.
Why would you send out, why we would not have to worry about the pregnancy issue in prison, which this bill addresses to protect pregnant women, if we didn't pass out, if condoms were not passed out in a state prison where we have male individuals, and in Chowchilla,
Senator Grove,
have pregnancies.
this is the last warning. Your mic will be cut off. Stick to the merits of the bill.
Pregnancies that are taking place where we allow postpartum to, this bill protects those women after they deliver babies to be able to have time off to recover this. So I applaud the author, I support this bill, and I think we as a Women's Caucus need to do more to protect women in prison situations that we have here in the state of California. Respectfully ask for an aye vote.
So good. And I love how she says, like, we as a Women's Caucus need to do more. The Women's Caucus tends to do things that sometimes are anti-woman or help aid in the erasure of women. We've seen that with some of the tampon bills and different things. So I'm really glad Shannon Grove said it's time for us to stand up for what's right. And Greg, when she was talking about males being in the women's prison and women testing positive for AIDS and being raped and all these condoms being handed out, you know, like if I haven't heard anything about that, and I'm watching that for the first time. I'm thinking, is that from male guards? Are there male visitors? What does she mean by when she says there's males in the women's prison?
Well, she means that there are men who are claiming to be women who can now simply identify as a woman and be treated as a woman and be housed in the women's prison. That's what's happening. SB 132, I testified against this maybe 5 years ago, where Senator Wiener had this bill that said transgender women are women. Well, transgender women are men pretending to be women, and they need to be treated just like women, meaning that means any man in the male prison who announces he's a woman should be treated as a woman. And now that is happening. Men are being transferred into the women's prison. Chowchilla is one of the largest women prisons in the world, Central California. And we talk with people down there who have a ministry down there. Amy, what is her last name again, Amy?
Ichikawa, with women for women.
And she works with women in that prison, and she is dealing with horror stories from women who say they have to live in tight quarters with men. The men are raping other women. they have girlfriends. They actually ask to be housed with their girlfriends, right? And sex is taking place, and they're handing out condoms. They're handing out condoms in a women's prison, right? So it's like, and now we're having to deal with issues with more and more women in prison who are pregnant. Well, how is that happening? It's unconscionable. Like, hey, I realize these are prisoners, but we need to treat them with dignity. And housing them with men is not treating them with dignity, right? It's wrong. It is horrific. And it should not be done. And the Women's Caucus should be standing up for these incarcerated women who are doing their time. They're paying the penalty for whatever they did. But that does not include getting to be raped and live with a male on your top bunk. And having to shower and live in tight quarters where there is no privacy. It's really wrong, and that's why she brought it up. And good for her. And that little video of her trying to explain what was happening in women's prisons got shut down. They didn't want her to talk about that. But she did, and I believe that went. Lots of people were posting it, so that little incident that happened that you guys all should know about.
Yes, absolutely. And so we have that, and there was another woman, and now an assembly member, that also had a great floor speech this week. Assemblywoman Kate Sanchez. She's
Right.
Southern California area. And this was on AB 1840. And so you might be familiar with this bill. Like if you're listening right now, you might not know the number, but you might have heard a little bit about what's going on. And so this bill would give illegal immigrants home loans with 0% down. And so again, well, I want to just show everyone her speech, but Greg, is there anything you want to share on it before we tune into her?
Well, this is a program that is supposed to help first-time home buyers, and it was supposed to help. It's those who are qualify have to be citizens. That is what the current law says. If you want up to $150,000 to help with the down payment on a home, they have this program where they're handing out that kind of cash to folks, and they want that to be made available to those who are here illegally, and we've already now providing healthcare insurance to those here illegally. We provide education, and so it seems as though the state wants to incentivize people to break federal law and come across the border illegally, even though there are thousands and thousands of people who are trying to do it legally, following all the rules, because citizenship means something. And so there was a big debate on the floor. Why are we now adding another benefit that non-citizens have access to? It isn't fair to those who are trying to follow the law. And so Assemblywoman Sanchez gives a pretty good speech explaining why this is wrong.
Yeah, and the speech she gives will play right now. She put it on her Twitter, and this was her caption for it. The California Legislative Assembly Dems just passed AB 1840 to give illegal immigrants home loans with 0% down. Meanwhile, 1 million Californians live in deep poverty, and 180,000 are homeless. This is an unbelievable betrayal to the citizens of the state. Hashtag our system is broken.
Assemblymember Sanchez, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in strong opposition to AB 1840. Before you vote on this measure, I implore you to think about what an aye vote on this bill means. If you vote aye on this bill, you are encouraging more illegal, not legal, immigration into this state. For the first time in 25 years, California is now home to the busiest illegal point of entry in the United States. Immigrants look to California's current policies like a giant welcome sign. Welcome to California, where illegal immigrants get free healthcare, free food, and now a free home with 0% down. This isn't rocket science. If you're giving out free stuff, more people are going to come. If you vote aye on this bill, you are limiting the amount of funds that go to help Californians buy homes. The Dream for All program was meant to help Californians buy homes, which ran out of funds within 2 weeks. That's how immense the demand for this program is. How fair is it then for people who have had to endure the affordability crisis in this legislature continue to not only ignore, but make it worse? How fair is it to tell those people, now you have to compete for the small number of loans amongst illegal immigrants? As a granddaughter of legal immigrants, it's not. It's not fair at all. Just because you break the law to get into this country doesn't mean you get to cut the line in front of everyone else who is desperate to buy and live in their first home. There are 1 million Californians who live in deep poverty and nearly 200,000 who live on the streets without a home. And here we are talking about giving out free home loans to illegal immigrants. Do we have no shame? This is so completely wrong, and I urge a no vote on this measure.
Thank you, Assemblymember Sanchez.
So there were a bunch of fiery speeches, saying this, making the same point. And it's strange. It's infuriating. Mm-hmm. My wife and I were talking about this. It's just infuriating. It's infuriating for people who try to obey the law, right? The government sets up all these standards. Hey, this is what you need to do to become a citizen, and to do this and this. And here's, we can't just have an open border. Like everybody who wants to come to this country, we can't accommodate them all, right? We can't. And so we have a ordered process for every country has this. Every country has an ordered process where they let people in to assimilate. If you have an open border, things get really bad really quick, right? And so our own state officials are undermining the whole system by incentivizing people to break the law. Mm. It's so short-sighted. It's sad, it's so short-sighted. And ultimately, citizens have to hold their legislators accountable. So if legislators keep doing this, and everybody keeps voting for them, then really we can't blame the legislators. You have to blame the voters. So,
and it's like you said, when you're talking about this whole open border situation, if we all don't have borders, then how do you just have all these different countries? We have a border for a reason, and we shouldn't have this open border. And like she said, we're just driving incentive. And I like that Assemblywoman Sanchez noted she's a granddaughter of legal immigrants. I'm a granddaughter of a legal immigrant. I have aunts and stuff that are legal immigrants, and they too feel the same way. There's a way to come here and do it the correct way. But Sanchez makes a great point. Why would you come here and do it the correct way? If you come here illegally, you get all these bonuses. And there was something that was kind of going viral on Twitter earlier this week, and it was illegal aliens in San Diego, California, try to hijack 2 school buses filled with children. And so some of the legislators were tweeting about that and talking about that as well. And so this is the result. We are putting our citizens in danger, and those school children were put in danger in that moment. And yet we're offering incentives for people to come over here illegally. So like Greg said, there's been a bunch of fiery debate on that. But something else we had a lot of action on, and Greg, you had some good conversations on, is AB 1825, which violates the right of the public libraries to protect children from sexually explicit content. So, Greg, what were those conversations like this week?
Right. And so I wanted to kind of explain, when I'm up here at the state capitol and other folks are up here, I want to explain what lobbying looks like. So all the legislators are not actually in the Capitol building. They are temporarily moved about a block away to another high rise, about 10-story high rise on O Street. We call it the swing space. And in there, all the legislators have offices where you can go and visit. And you don't need an appointment, and you just go door to door to each legislator's office, and outside, it has their name and who they represent and what committees they're on, and you walk in, and here's what I did. So this particular bill was going to limit the ability of your local libraries to keep sexually explicit material out of the children's section of the library. But it's being promoted as a bill that prevents books, controversial books, from being banned from the library altogether. And so we put together this little flyer that points out the particular parts of the bill that we really objected to. And then you go, the bill was going to be heard in the assembly any day. And so I went to each of the offices, started on the 4th floor and went to the 5th floor, went to most of the offices. And here's what you do. You walk in, and I had this particular flyer, and say, hey, is there anybody I can talk to about this bill? It's going to be voted on very soon. I think it was in the education committee. And they go, okay, let me see. Every office has someone who deals with that particular committee, and they inform the legislature based on what committee the bill went through. And so we have usually a staffer comes on out and says, hey, how can I help you? And I give them a quick pitch. And I said, well, you got this bill coming up. And I said, hey, this bill looks great. Who wants to ban books? Right? But that's not really what makes this bill controversial. Actually, what this bill is doing, and I read them part of the text, and it says, the bill actually states that libraries shall not limit access to library materials that may include sexual content, even if by age. And then I showed him a story that was in the Cal Matters, which is in a newspaper that they all respect, talking about what happened in Fresno. Fresno had a library, a children's section where they were featuring a particular book, and that book was called It's Perfectly Normal. It was a sex education manual for little kids. It said 10-year-olds. It says 10 and up. Of course, you know what the libraries are like. They have a section for kids, and when I took my kids to the library, we kind of set them loose in a section of the library and say, hey, go find a book. But I think parents would be shocked if this kind of book was in the library, very sexually graphic. And I had to show in most of these legislative offices, what do you mean? What kind of books are actually being put in that parents are upset about? It's just probably a book they don't, that is something to do with some topic they're not, they don't like. No, it's sexually explicit. And I had to show them these pictures, which was really pretty embarrassing.
And if you're listening just like on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and all that, you obviously can't see. But if you head over to our YouTube page or our Facebook, you can watch the video version of the podcast, and you can see that we have these pictures up. And, we don't want to share these pictures, but like Greg said, we had to. But go ahead and go on, Greg. I just wanted them to know they can see it.
Well, these once the staffers saw the pictures, these are being promoted to kids in kids' libraries, and this bill prevents local libraries from keeping these books in the children's section. Now, in Fresno, what they did is these books are a little racy, very racy, and so we're going to put them to a side, and kids can only get them if parents have permission. This bill actually prevents that. It prevents anyone in a library from limiting access to any book if it has sexual content in it. Now, they have a caveat. Well, it doesn't apply to obscenity that the Supreme Court has determined is obscenity, which means it doesn't apply to outright pornography, the extreme stuff. But the stuff that we're keeping out of the hands of little kids is there's a lot of graphic stuff that we don't want our little kids to learn about sex when they're little. That's not a topic they need to know a whole ton about, right? And so parents, anyway, so it was, I went office to office with this message, And it was surprising. I had a lot of not just the Republicans eyes open, but Democrats too. I had some people saying they were blushing, like, oh my gosh, right? Other places I got some blank stares. But anyway, I was able to change some minds and legislative votes, but not enough to stop the bill. The Democrats were fully invested in this bill, and sadly, most of them voted for it.
Yeah, it's absolutely horrible. And just to know again, if you're listening via podcast and can't see the images we are showing, they are images for, like Greg said, it's for, on the book it says ages 10 and up. So for 10-year-olds to actually see sexual acts being performed, I mean, it's not something we want to show. It's not something we want to even put on the podcast, but it has to be exposed, so people's eyes can be opened up to the reality of what's happening. But it's basically it's pornographic photos is what it is, and it's now going to just be put in these libraries and stuff. But so, Greg, where is AB 1825 currently?
I believe it is now. Let me just double check. I should have had this before it started, but yeah, it's on the governor's desk. So it passed both houses. It looks like most of the Democrats voted yes. A lot of the Republicans voted no, in both the Senate and the House. So there were some Republicans, sadly, that did vote yes. And Alanis, let's see, who else? Waldron, Wallace voted yes. I'm looking at some others here. I think that is all the Republicans I see voting yes on this. So
did Wilkes
three of them.
Did Wilkes
Who's that?
Did Wilkes vote yes? I just want to clarify whether that was a yes or no vote.
Oh, in the Senate?
Mm-hmm.
Wilk? Yeah, no, Wilk voted no.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, that was it. I mentioned those names in the Assembly. In the Senate, I don't think we had. I'm looking. No, all the Republicans voted no. Yeah, I don't see anybody voting yes. So, but that what now? When previously, it had gone through the Assembly before and had returned. When it first went through the Assembly, there were only 3 no votes, and those are from Republicans, and 15 people just didn't vote. So we were able to change a bunch of minds, but sadly, this book being talked about as a, hey, we don't want to ban books. And I even went in there and said, hey, I don't want to ban books from libraries. I'm not interested in banning books I disagree with. But this is about what little kids have access to. Everybody knows that little kids shouldn't be looking at sexually explicit material. I mean, I even brought up among the Democrats, hey, you just voted this year to make pornography websites to age verify people are on their site. You're admitting that some books don't belong in the hands of children, right? That's not book banning. That's like good parenting, right? That's what, and we all know this. We do this with movies. We do this with online content, with filters. I'm sure we do this at schools. You got filters on school equipment. Sadly, they don't work very well. But, and so I was trying to appeal to many of the Democrats who, scream out book banning when we're really talking about keeping sexual material out of the hands of kids. So hopefully we're starting to change some minds up here, but it's a slow process. But anybody could do what I just did, right? There was only one of me. What if we had hundreds of people up here doing the same exact thing? I think we would have changed some more minds. So anybody can do this. It doesn't take a degree. It's not that hard. And once you get the hang of it, you'll see how easy it is.
Absolutely. Well, with that, like Greg said, AB 1825 is now on the governor's desk, so you can call Governor Gavin Newsom and urge a no vote, urge him
Right.
to not sign it, to veto the bill. And so, well, with that, Greg, unless if there's anything else you have, we will see you all next time.
Sounds good.